I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the Gundungurra land and people. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I also want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which you, our listeners, are joining us from today. I recognise the deep connection that First Nations people have to this land, their enduring culture, and their commitment to the preservation and care for their country. This land was never ceded, and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Hey there, and welcome to Beyond the Surface, the podcast where we explore the stories of people who have survived religious trauma, left high control or cult communities, and are deconstructing their faith. I'm your host, Sam, and each week I'll talk with individuals who have taken the brave step to start shifting their beliefs that might have once controlled and defined their lives. Join us as we dig into their experiences, the challenges they've faced, and the insights they've gained. Whether you're on a similar journey or you're just curious about these powerful stories, you're in the right place. This is Beyond the Surface. Welcome, Nismah. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited about this episode because I really like the episodes where I'm coming in like pretty blind. Like I don't know much or if any of your story except what you sort of said to me in the emails that we've exchanged. And whereas sometimes I'm used to coming into these episodes knowing quite a bit about someone's story, it's kind of nice to not know much. But before we get started, where in the world are you for everybody listening?
Yeah, sure. I am in Western Massachusetts in the United States.
Amazing. What is that part of the US like for those who don't know the US?
Well, right now it's very cold. We just
Right.
had 6 inches of snow last night, which is kind
Oh,
of nice
wow.
and cozy this time of year.
Yeah.
It's New England. If most people think of Boston when they think of
Right.
Massachusetts, and
Yeah.
so I'm actually not from Massachusetts. I'm from New Jersey, but I ended up here through a series of random life events. But
Right. Okay.
yeah.
6 inches of snow. Yikes. That is a lot. Goodness.
It's
It's
not really
like,
even a lot.
right.
Not for
Okay.
us.
Okay.
You can
It's
sometimes get up
like
to two
I'm
feet.
sitting in a sweat box currently where I
Yeah.
mean it's like we've just hit summer. I joked like a couple of weeks ago with someone. I was like, I'm not a hot weather person, and I joked saying, "Oh my gosh, like when is summer gonna be over?" And they were like, "It's not even started." And I was like, "Oh shit." So
So the
I'm
seasons
listening
are
to
opposite.
yeah, yeah. So I'm listening to you
Okay.
saying snow, and I'm like, oh, that sounds so lovely because I mean, we're 6 days into summer and I'm already over it, to be fair. So,
Well, it gets really hot down there, no?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm probably lucky in that, like, I'm on the south side of Australia, but I have lived in more rural and north parts up in like Queensland, and it's like really hot. I have lived
Yeah.
somewhere that's like I don't actually know what the Celsius to Fahrenheit ratio is, but for like the Australian listeners, like 40 odd degrees, which I don't
Oh,
know.
that's hot.
Yeah, yeah, it's
That's
very
hot.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I'm listening to snow and I'm going, that sounds really lovely, actually. So,
Yeah,
oh, oh,
I think it all eventually gets old and then you
oh,
want the next thing, but
yeah.
try to
It's
appreciate it.
absolutely. I think it's always the grass is greener on the other side concept, but
Yeah.
yeah, if you're used to one thing, you want another. But anyway,
Yeah.
we're going to digress there. So, I like I mentioned before, I like to start with a really broad, vague question, which is where does your story start?
Yeah. This is, I think, okay, I won't overthink it. My story starts when my mom came home after getting, you can't see me, saved.
Hmm.
So, I did air quotes. And that was when I was very young. I was probably like barely 7 or 8, and we were not religious up to that point.
Mm,
Um, and so when she came home, everything just sort of flipped like or I should say 180 degrees.
mm,
Um, and life just became all about religion and church and
mm,
everything. And she happened to adopt a very, very strict, toxic set of beliefs. So that was fun. So yeah, I think that
Don't you
that's
love when
kind of
trauma survivors say that was fun and we go, it was not fun at all?
it was not fun at all, dude. Yeah, the sarcasm, you gotta have it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that's probably the where the domino fell there.
Mm. And this is just like language that I use, but like what flavor of Christianity were you saved into?
Yeah, so it was like I feel like it was a mix of like everything, but I shouldn't say everything because there's a lot, but it was not one particular like we are Baptists or we
Mm,
are Protestants. But it would I remember a lot of like there was like the speaking in tongues and there was like, the like a lot of we ended up going to a bunch of different Baptist churches.
mm,
So I think we kind of got into that whole Baptist sort of thinking. Um, but yeah, I would say more evangelical flavor if I had to pick one.
hmm.
So,
Okay. What was the flip like for you at that age to go from like no religion to all of the religion?
it's I actually remember the moment that my mom came home,
Mm,
like very clear. Um, and I remember feeling this drive to like be cooperative
mm,
and obedient. And then it was like, you know, what people explained it as like the Holy Spirit. But now that I have, language for it, I know that it was just probably pure terror and
mm,
and like confusion. And so, um, but I don't really remember much of life before that point,
mm,
unfortunately. So I don't really have a comparison. I
mm,
just know what life was like after that, which was just really overwhelmingly religious.
mm. What did that look like day to day for you? Or what did that look like in terms of what you were being taught about yourself and the world around you?
Yeah. It it so we started going to church like as often as you can go, every function, every service, sometimes 4 or 5, even 6 times a week, depending on the time of year. And so we just the identity of the family just kind of became this all completely enmeshed in church and religion, and it was just kind of what we were as a family. And um and it was very isolating.
Mm,
And it a lot of the beliefs obviously were very unhealthy, homophobia and that purity culture bullshit, all that, like no
mm,
masturbation, no sex before
mm,
marriage. We weren't allowed to date. We weren't even allowed to talk about sex, watch movies with sex. It just became this super strict Puritan environment.
mm,
Um, and obviously, well, not obviously, I mean, for me, I am gay and
mm,
was then too. And
mm,
so that was, you know, my body just shoved that way down,
mm.
because I think it knew,
Yeah,
I believe our bodies are wise, and it knew I had to do that to stay safe. So that was kind of what life was like for a while.
yeah. It's really interesting because I think the people who don't necessarily understand church dynamics or purity culture dynamics is that I think that there is this assumption that churches just hate gay people, but actually churches just hate sex and sexuality.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really matter who is doing the sex. Like
Yeah.
they just hate it. They're terrified of it. They think that it is like the slippery slope to like hell and damnation. And the more I talk to people, the more I realize actually like nature and therapy is probably that more than anything else is the
But you
slippery
know
slope out of
what?
church.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know what though? I think on the flip side, it's kind of masked. It's a mask for almost an obsession
Mhm. Yeah.
about sex too,
Mm.
especially from the patriarchal lens of like objectification of women.
Mm.
Because I don't know about you, but I was conditioned to basically just save myself for my future husband so that he could
Mhm.
enjoy me, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Um, Getting all the messaging about how I would be a wilted flower if I chose
Mm.
to have sex before marriage and I was useless and all this garbage. So, yeah, I think they're terrified of sex, but I also think they're a little bit obsessed with it
Yeah.
because they push it so far away from themselves. And that's why I think you see a lot of abuse that goes on in the church because
Mm.
it's like trying to not want food. You
Yeah.
have to have food, so you're going to figure out how to get it in shady ways. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think and it's like you said, it's all comes back to patriarchy and the fact that they're not just terrified slash obsessed with sex, they also just like really hate women.
yeah.
And so like that just manifests in so many of the rules that we see and so much
Hmm.
of the abuse that we see, not just sexual abuse, but domestic violence and all of that sort of thing. So okay, what was it? I want to go back to your story because otherwise I'll just get distracted talking about the patriarchy. Um,
We could
so,
do another episode on that one if you want.
um, but I'm curious, like, what it because like I have a lot of feelings, and this comes up a lot in these episodes, but I have a lot of feelings about children as young as 7, 8, 9, 10, um, being saved and saying the sinner's prayer and, understanding childhood development and going, they've got like Barclay's idea of what they're actually agreeing to, what they're actually
Hmm.
saying. And so, how do you look back on that time period for you?
Yeah, it was a huge source of anxiety for me,
Mm.
obviously.
Yeah.
Um, because in the doctrine that I was raised into, it was about making sure that you believed it in your heart
Mm.
and then communicated it. So I remember I would be there countless nights I would be up worrying, oh, did I say the prayer right? Did I really mean it when I said it? I
Yeah.
would take I would take anxiety walks just thinking about it and repeating the prayer and like developing like a compulsion around it.
Mm.
So there was that piece, but then there was also, feeling the literal entire weight of the world
Mm.
because if I didn't witness to as many people as I could, they would all be burned in hell and it would be my fault. And
Yeah.
so as a young kid, you believe that just as much as you believe in Santa Claus. And
Mm.
so, it all feels very real. And it's your mind at that age is literally not doesn't have the capacity to know how to cope with that in any way that's healthy. So I just remember that really damaging I think how much I could enjoy the world and my place in it.
Yeah. Did you find that you could? Like, did you feel like you were able to just like be a kid?
Sometimes I
Mm.
I went to public school
Mm.
and I think that saved me in a lot
Mm.
of ways that I am sure I'm not even aware of, just in terms of my development as a kid.
Yeah.
I thankfully we weren't homeschooled because I know a lot of people who were or went to, private religious schools. And I just feel really lucky that I had that experience in like at least a secular
Mm.
secular environment. air quotes again,
Mm.
um, so that I could get some other input, and
Yeah.
I think that it really saved me in a lot of ways and kept me kind of kept what those symptoms sort of at bay from completely,
Mm.
sucking me into a full-on depression.
Yeah. I mean, often what I find when people have that of being able to go to a secular school, it's like the only time that you get to be outside of that bubble, like that,
Hmm.
like because, it is when you are in church and you are in those religious spaces, it is like a bubble. Like it's just so, like you said, it's enmeshed. And if your schooling and education is also in that, whether it be
Hmm.
homeschooling or a private Christian school, you never get out of the bubble.
Hmm.
And that's it's a
Yeah,
lot. Yeah. So
very hard to escape that.
yeah, absolutely. Um, what impact did purity culture and well, I mean, this is probably a two-question thing actually. So let's just start with what impact did purity culture have on you as you went into like your teenage years?
Yeah. I think it was extremely detrimental to my development
Mm,
in every aspect.
mm,
So, as I mentioned, I'm gay,
mm,
always have been. Always knew it. A part of me always knew it. And so I didn't really get to explore that part of myself
yeah.
at all, really. I mean, I was a, I am and, was a very sexually driven kid. And
Mm,
so I would sneak off and watch porn and I would still masturbate but it was all in the context of I shouldn't be doing this. I'm bad. And
yeah.
so it came with this like huge weight of guilt and shame
Mm,
that almost made it not worth it,
mm.
but at the same time it was worth it, because you got to do what you got to do, right? When
Yeah.
you're like 15.
Yeah.
So but it marred the whole experience for me, and something that should have been celebrated and supported um, was shamed and really done in secret.
Mm,
Um, and I think that because I didn't date either.
mm,
I didn't date anyone. And so, I mean, I wasn't even really attracted to boys. I would say I had crushes on them because that's what I was supposed to do, but I didn't really want to do that. I remember having real crushes on girls and wanting
mm.
to explore physically, but obviously not having the wherewithal to do that. But so it made me really behind in that way, in that area of my life, and I feel like I'm still catching up
Yeah.
decades later.
Yeah. I find, particularly for queer people coming out of faith spaces, there is just like an immense amount of grief for the version of you that should have been able to exist that didn't.
Hmm. Oh
Um,
yeah.
it's just that just wasn't weighted in control and shame and rigidity. And that grief is ongoing because you're grieving about the lost time, but you're also grieving
Hmm.
about the time that you're having to like play catch up over the
Hmm.
next however many decades you've got,
Yeah.
depending on when you do eventually embrace who you are. When did you consciously know? Because like as a queer person, like I obviously know that there is a difference between knowing and knowing.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
When did you consciously know what that was?
I feel like I was very young.
Yeah.
I remember having a lot of different crushes and just feelings for different girls,
Mm,
and knowing that knowing that it meant more than just, oh, you just think she's pretty,
mm,
like my body knew,
mm,
and I didn't have the language or I didn't have the permission
mm.
to, go ahead and say it outright, but I knew.
Yeah.
And but my brain just kept suppressing it all, obviously, as it was doing its job.
Mm,
Um, but then I didn't end up coming out um, until my mid 20s.
Yeah,
And
right.
so, but when I did, all of those memories,
Mm,
it was like a room was unlocked
mm,
and you open the closet and the boxes fall. That was kind of the experience.
yeah,
And it all just kind of like clicked immediately and I was like, "Oh shit, I'm definitely gay."
yeah,
It took it took 25 years to get there, but I got there.
yeah. Welcome to the club. It's much more fun in this club.
Oh yeah, it is. Oh yeah.
I'm curious, when you were younger in that sort of like teen, preteen age, at what point did the faith of your mom and your family become yours? Like, at what point did it become personal? Did it ever?
Mm. It's a great question and something I think about quite a bit. I really don't think I ever connected with it. I
Yeah.
was always performing,
Mm,
always performing.
yeah.
And the reason I believe that is because it was so easy for me to leave the faith once I finally just gave it a little bit of critical thinking.
Yeah.
And we can get into kind of how
Mm,
I ended up leaving it, but it didn't take much for me to just kind of
mm,
look at it objectively and throw it out the door. And so I really do think that I just knew what was expected of me to keep my mom and my family peace, there. I keep my mom happy, I should say, and I just performed. Because I remember hating going to church. I always hated it. I would
mm,
zone out in sermons and fantasize and daydream, and I would go anywhere but the present, and which
yeah.
also has ramifications in my life later, which I've still
Mm,
dealing with that inability to just be present. Um, but
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people think that it's just, we're daydreaming and we're zoning out. And yeah, sometimes it might be that. But also when you're in a space that is like fundamentally telling you that you are like basically really, really shit at your core. And also when you're realizing that maybe you don't fit what they deem as an acceptable human being, that space doesn't just become boring, that space becomes unsafe, and you don't just zone
Mm.
out, you dissociate. And so
Oh yeah.
when you
Yep.
dissociate, that's your nervous system just like disconnecting, and that's gonna stick around. That doesn't just like disappear once you leave. Like
Yeah.
you're not just zoning out during a boring movie that you watch every
Right.
week, right? It's so much more layered than that that I just think yeah, a lot of people don't realize that like a boring space is very different to that space being unsafe as
Yeah.
well.
Totally.
Um, yeah. Is that how you experienced it at the time?
Oh, probably. Yeah. When I think back, I mean, I would have like this is kind of weird to say, but I would have like story lines in
Mm,
my head that I would have reserved just for church services. And
oh,
whenever I would be in the church service, my mind would go back into that storyline and just re-enter like an imaginative thing. Like yeah, I was imagining myself in a movie or something.
mm,
And I would re-enter that, go there for however long the service was,
mm,
and then come out of it and leave it till the next week and the next week. And
mm,
I didn't realize I was doing that, but it was like this mechanism that my brain
mm.
developed just to keep me somewhat, I guess, like you said, safe in
Yeah.
that while I was there and dissociated, tuned
Mm,
out, whatever you want to call it,
mm.
for sure. Oh, I became a master at that.
Yeah. It sounds like it was almost like um, like we talk about trauma responses, it was like a comfort response for your nervous
Mm,
system to go into like the same world to separate yourself
mm.
from the world that you were presently in.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
brain and the body is really cool if you give it the chance to be.
Yeah, totally.
So,
Amazing.
yeah. I mean, I'm curious what impact that had, all of that, and I guess, the experience of like going from unconsciously to like consciously masking your sexuality and who you were. What impact did that have on like building friendships and relationships as a teenager?
Yeah, I remember I started to get depressed when
Mm,
when I entered high school.
mm,
'Cause that's the time when you're supposed to start dating and exploring your body, etc. And all my friends were doing it and talking about it, and I wasn't, and I was the weird one. And so it was isolating, and I was very sheltered and shut out from a lot of that. Like I wasn't allowed to go to the, parties and certain meetups and things that made me kind of stick out like the weird one. And but believe it or not, the group of friends I had were extremely um like they held a lot of space for me.
mm,
And they were very kind people and still are to this day. And it was almost like they all kind of had this awareness about me that I didn't. Like maybe they could see that I was in a really bad situation that I couldn't see.
yeah.
And they all just kind of held this really, really kind space for me. I remember one of my friends is gay, and I was very judgmental of him.
Mm,
And he was still my friend.
yeah.
It was crazy, and it just I don't know what it was about those people, but very grateful that I had that because I feel like it could have gone the other way, where I could have been completely isolated,
Mm,
but yeah, it was challenging to say the least.
yeah. I as you were talking, I can very much relate to like being queer, but also I find one of the hardest parts of healing from religious trauma or deconstructing is realizing the system of harm that you also perpetuated whilst you were
Hmm.
in said system. And
Oh
so
yeah.
like hearing you talk about like your gay friend who you were friends with, but had so much judgment for. I was like, oh, I can relate to that. What is
Oh
it
yeah.
like for you now, reflecting back on that and going, like, I mean, the way that I go is I'm like, fuck, I really wish I didn't do that. Like, but also,
Yeah.
of course, I did that because that was the system that I was a part of. But what
Yeah.
is that like for you?
There's a lot of feelings. Number one, I'm a little embarrassed.
Mm,
Um, Number two, I'm extremely grateful
mm.
that I had, that the grace that was given to me, which is ironic because we were the ones supposed to be giving grace, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. It's dripping with irony.
Yeah.
Um, and then I also have compassion on that version of myself because I know in a way it wasn't my fault. I
Yeah.
was a kid and I was being brainwashed and abused,
Mm,
and I was just doing what I thought I needed to do to stay safe.
yeah.
So it's a mixed bag of things.
Yeah. It's often the mixed bags that are like really tricky to navigate once you're on the other side as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I okay. So if we move into, I guess, like adulthood, early adulthood, because like a lot of people don't necessarily realize that basically once you hit 18, you're on a ticking time to get married and start having babies. Like especially as a woman, like that's what you're supposed to
Yeah.
do. So like once you hit 18, that's your goal. And so, growing up with purity culture, I suspect that was also the goal that you got conditioned with. So what was
Oh
that
yeah.
time period like for you?
So so after high school, I actually went to Bible college.
Oh yeah, didn't we all?
Did you
Didn't
go to
we
Bible
all?
college too? Oh man.
I feel like
But do you want
anybody who has come out on the other side of religious trauma has done some sort of like theological college, ministry degree,
Oh
like
my God.
seminary, anything like that. Because often, I don't know about you, but like, I don't know if this is where it's going, but for me, that's where the wheels came off. Like, once you're like actually knee deep in pulling shit apart and pulling doctrines and, Bible passages and stuff apart, you're like, oh, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to know what's funny? And another huge testament to how amazing our bodies are. The
Mm,
only real reason I went was because I had a crush on my female camp counselor
Oh, we
who
love that.
was a part of that Bible school. They had like a camp, and it was just my brain's way of like being gay, I guess.
Oh, I
You
love
know? I
that.
totally unconscious to me. I was
Yeah.
not aware of this until like I was processing and looking back, right? But it was so obvious. And
Yeah.
I remember getting to Bible school and they handed us this like 3-inch thick syllabi. And I remember thinking, what the fuck am I doing here? I
Mm,
do not want to be here. But again, I shoved it down and was like, I'm here. I got to do it. Let's do
mm.
it.
I mean, it's the
But
good Christian girl thing to do, right?
oh, right, yeah. And I don't know why I didn't say like I'm out of here. Probably because I had nothing else better to do, or at least in my mind, I was like, well, I guess I'm here. I might as well stick
Mm,
it out. But yeah, I knew right off the bat it was not going to be a fun time,
mm.
and I hated almost every moment of it.
Yeah. 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 What was it like? Because I feel like everybody's experience at a Bible college of sorts is really different.
Hmm. Well, I'm gonna answer your original question
Mm,
about like the getting married and all that,
mm,
but and it all kind of ties in. But so this place, I'll say it's called Word of Life Bible Institute. Maybe you've heard of it. It's in upstate New York in the
right.
US.
I
And
mean,
it's
I haven't heard of it, but the name of it probably tells me a lot about it.
yeah, basically super ultra conservatism, you know, boys and girls are not allowed to hold hands. They're not allowed to be in a car without a third party. Like we're talking like
Yeah.
deep state stuff, right? Obviously no homosexuality, as they say, no masturbation, no porn, no anything, right? I mean, it's basically just suffer for the cause and be happy about it.
Yeah.
Um, which was just awful. And what some of the stuff I witnessed to some of the friends that I had there
Mm,
was just really inhumane. And the way that they treated us was inhumane. I mean, they forced us to work as part of our curriculum. So
mm.
we all had to have jobs while being in school 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It was required. It wasn't like a work study program where you could if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Um, and that's how they subsidized your tuition, right?
Mm,
Um, and then they made us work a full summer after,
mm.
uh, or we would lose all of our credits. So it was basically like I won't say slavery, but it was forced servitude
Mm. I mean,
in
it's a form
exchange
of like
for
religious exploitation, realistically.
exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a
Like,
good way to
because
put it.
I mean, I also assume that, there is also the expectation that you are serving and volunteering in like churches and doing ministry outside of
Oh
like
yeah.
all of the paid stuff as well. Like,
Yep,
there's so much
absolutely.
voluntary, air quotes, voluntary exploitation because like that's you're advancing the kingdom, right? So
Oh
like
yeah.
and like that's that part of you that's exhausted, suffering, burnt out and fatigued. But I'm really happy about it because it's like I'm supposed to be, right?
Well, I remember that summer I was a camp counselor. I was 18 counseling people
Mm,
17, 16, like I had no training, no proper like
yeah.
skills to be guiding anyone in
Mm,
any part of their life, but there I was responsible for up to 15 children at a time, sometimes with one other co-counselor that was also equally unqualified. And we were working 18-hour days. Literally, we would get up at 6 and we would go to bed at like 1, 2 a.m. because campus for fun, right? Rock
mm,
on. And so I remember they called a staff meeting and everyone was like, yo, we're tired. We need more time off. And they said, their response was, you should be grateful because you're better than you should be. And what they meant was you should be burning in hell right now because of how, sinful and horrible you are. So just be grateful
um,
you're not burning in hell right now. So you should be happy about how exhausted you are.
Not
So I was like,
manipulative or emotionally like gaslighty at
I,
all.
and I at that moment I was like, whoa, there's something really wrong going on here.
Yeah.
So I finished out the summer, but I had already at that point gotten accepted to the school that I went and did my undergrad at in Boston, which is how I ended up in Massachusetts. Um, but yeah, to answer your question about the marriage stuff,
Mm.
yeah, that was like on my mind all the time. I was like, oh, am I gonna meet a boy? Am I gonna meet a boy? Am I gonna meet a boy? Meanwhile, my body's like, girl, you don't want to meet a boy. You don't
No.
want this. So
Yeah.
I think I subconsciously pushed it away, you
Mm.
know? And I'm really glad I did because I knew quite a few people who met their spouses that same year, and we
Yeah.
were literally children
Yeah.
who didn't legally could not drink in this country and were getting married and having children. And I was like, wow, I'm really glad that I dodged that bullet.
But I
So,
mean, that's like half of the goal, I feel like,
oh yeah,
of why like 18-year-olds are going to Bible college or doing anything in that space is because like, oh, like I can find my future spouse.
yeah,
That's half of the intention.
yeah.
So, yeah. Mm.
Well, hey, I mean, look, to each their own, right? Everybody's on their own journey.
Yeah.
But I am just really glad in a way that I had this internal resistance to the whole
Mm,
thing. And I never really actually felt compelled to have kids.
mm,
Um, so I wasn't in a rush to like become a mom. I'm still not a mom.
mm.
Well, I'm a stepmom, but that's a different ball game. I would never compare myself to a full-blown mother.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I don't know. Feel lucky in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, like, not getting married, not having kids, like, what was uh, were you treated differently for not doing the things that you were supposed to be doing?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
mean, by my family, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember getting much pushback about that. But I think it was because I was so driven in my career. Like
Mm,
I studied music and I my passion is music and I make music and so that was that's always been kind of a big part of my identity since I was really young. And so I think that kind of gave me this special permission
mm,
to live life differently, you know, because it was like this cool sort of thing and I was really talented and it was like, "Oh, go use your gifts for God" sort of thing.
mm,
And so I think I got a little exception made for me there.
mm.
But little did they know.
I mean, okay, now like music has entered the conversation. As somebody who is connected to music, how did you feel about worship
Hated it.
growing up?
Hated
Mm,
hated every minute because it was so fake and so
yeah.
manipulative and so boring. Like, come on, we're singing hymns from like the 1800s. Like, come on. Even the
Yeah.
contemporary Christian music is just so
Mm,
corny and so fake and so like performative. And I never once wrote a worship song my whole life.
right. Were you ever a worship leader?
No, never. I never wanted any part of it.
Wow.
I would do like specials in church, you know,
Yeah.
and sing, but that's just because I wanted to sing and
Yeah.
perform because I loved it. But
Yeah.
it was never about the song that I was singing or, you know, it's never because I felt like connected to the whole thing. I just loved music and wanted to do it. But I know I never did any of the worship teams. I always felt like a fraud doing that, actually.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You're actually probably one of the first people that I've met that's like been musically inclined or musically gifted, who was not thrust on the stage to do worship. Like,
Yeah.
was there any questions of you as to why that wasn't happening? Like, why you weren't, using your gifts for God?
Well, I'm trying to remember. I I don't think so.
Mm,
Because because I think I would and often enough
Mm.
in performative ways
Mhm.
that kind of satisfied that pressure. Like like I said, I would do like a Christmas special or, whatever. I don't know. But in my heart, I always knew I was like, I'm just doing it because I want to sing and
Mm.
because, you know, I I should, according to the people around me. But it never was like a such a thing that I was forced into doing like worship or anything. But
Mm.
also, I was a very stubborn child. And
Mm.
so you couldn't really make me do things I didn't want to do. And I think my mom learned that and so didn't press the issue.
Mm.
But there was, of course, always the pressure to be using my gifts for God. And I was like, yeah, all right, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Okay, so once you moved to Boston and you were out of like your hometown,
mhm.
home church, out of Bible college, what happened for you?
Yeah, I had a really hard time to
Yeah,
no one's surprise. I
yeah.
was super maladjusted. I was immediately thrown into like a state of near constant panic and anxiety because I had never lived on my own before. I was always ultra sheltered. I had very little skills for building relationships that were not centered in religion.
Mm.
Um, and I was at a secular school in a very liberal city. And so I was like a fish out of water.
Mm.
And so I
And surrounded
really
by
struggled
heathens.
and surrounded by heathens. Exactly. Those heathens having their sex and doing their drugs.
Listening to that rock music.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm like studying the rock music,
Yeah.
figuring out how to make it. Um, yeah, but it started to unravel for
Yeah.
me at that point because I was on my own and I was able to choose for myself what I wanted to do with my time. And so of course I started off going to church like a good girl,
Mhm.
but I just it was so unpleasant for me that I was like, "Oh God, if there's no one to force me to do this, I don't really want to do this."
Yeah.
So eventually I just stopped going to church and um I actually the third was it my second or third year there, I developed a huge crush on one of my friends who's a girl. And that sent me into like a full-blown identity crisis because she was my friend and we had like a relationship. It
Mhm.
wasn't a romantic relationship, but it was a real person. It wasn't like some fantasy, right?
Mhm.
And I started having these really intense feelings for her, and it was my first real experience like that where my body was telling me, you want this, go
Yeah.
get this. But my mind was saying, don't go there. And so it was extremely disorienting. And I
Mm.
had no one to help me understand it. All the messaging I was getting was, oh, you'll be fine. It's, whatever. You're just going through something.
Mm.
And so, of course, it squash it back down, right?
Yeah.
But that was kind of the beginning of the end for me because it was like, it was only a matter of time before it was going to pop back up again. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask about that, but I want to ask first what it was like for you, and was there any panic or guilt when you stopped going to church?
no, none
Mm.
at all. I loved it. Yeah. Because I didn't have to perform anymore. Because, like I said, it was all performance for me. I never felt connected to it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, nah, I'm good. And I just didn't go.
Mm. I love that for you.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the lack of panic and guilt.
I mean, I was panicking over other things, don't you
Yes.
worry.
Yeah.
Like my big fat gayness, but
Yes, exactly. So I mean, let's get to that because what was because I know what it was like for me, but what was that dissonance like between you had been conditioned up until this point to know that anything out of heteronormativity is not just bad, but is like the root of all evil. Like it's
mhm.
like the worst. it's like this idea that there is no hierarchy of sin, but gayness is absolutely at the top of the hierarchy of sin.
Right.
Like
The
just
hierarchy that doesn't
it's
exist.
just
Yeah.
there's no hierarchy, but there is. And this is like the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And so like how was it for you to have been conditioned to think that and now to be having like very visceral physical experiences of the opposite? What was it
It
like?
was terrifying.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was terrifying and confusing and lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sad
Mm,
because it was just such an intense internal dissonance.
mm,
Like I don't know, it felt like being thirsty and believing that you couldn't drink water. It was like this doesn't make any sense. So yeah, it was really, really difficult.
mm. I have heard there's a particular trauma expert person. I don't like the word expert, but it's probably the best word at this in this instance. Who describes cognitive dissonance as a pervasive form of internal torture and war. And I was
Mm,
like, oh, that's the best description I've ever heard.
that is a good
Because
one.
that's what it feels like, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. The parts of yourself. I mean, and literally, I don't know. I mean, you're a therapist, right? So I'm sure you're familiar with internal family systems and therapy, different parts work.
Yeah.
I've read a little bit about that, and I believe it's really two parts of yourself that are just literally trying to take over, and they're both trying to keep you safe, ironically. They just don't know how to do it functionally. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And they're at war with one another,
yeah.
right? Like because they're supposedly total opposites. Like
Hmm.
at the beginning, like obviously once you start to integrate that, you can pull it apart and look at it a little bit differently. But in that beginning stages, they're at war with one another.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what it feels like. Like you're at war with
Absolutely.
yourself.
Yeah. And I
What was
think
it?
that's what leads a lot of people to suicidality
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
I think really that's what it is just some people don't have the resources or the coping mechanisms to kind of weasel their way out of that torture.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm grateful for whatever chance, by whatever happenstance, I didn't go that route. But
Yeah.
yeah, so sorry I cut you off.
No, 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 that's okay. It's a nice little lead in, which was I was going to say, which is how did you navigate it? How did you deal with that internal war?
I thought about it a lot
Yeah,
and then I suppressed it.
yeah,
I just shoved it right back down until it didn't take long for it to come back. It took maybe a couple years
mm,
until I developed another crush.
mm,
And then that's kind of when you're gonna laugh, but that's uh, so I didn't suppress it. At that point, a couple years later, after I graduated college and I deconstructed, it took me like 6 months to deconstruct.
mm.
Then I started having another crush, and I was like, all right, I'm bisexual, right? I
Like
like left I
gateway
left the door
drug.
open a little. Yes.
It's funny because I laugh because I am bisexual, but it's still like it's so used for so many queer people as like the acceptable form because like I used to
Right,
describe it as like my straight privilege, like my straight passing privilege, and that I didn't
right.
look queer. I still liked boys, and so like I just fed off that for a while. And then I was like, as I got older, I was like, actually, I might be attracted to boys, but actually, I don't really like them very much. They kind of suck.
Yeah,
But now it's like it is such a gateway for people. It's like the safer option because it's like it's not quite saying that you're gay. So like there's still
yeah,
room for me to not
yeah.
be the thing that I'm supposed to not be.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that was my mind's way of like, I guess, avoiding the that cognitive dissonance while also avoiding having to kind of, or the potential of losing everything that I had known up until that point. But in my heart, I knew I was not. I mean, I actually at that point, I don't know if I knew. I was still kind of pretty self-delusioned. Um, and then shortly after that, I met a guy
Oh,
and started dating, and we were together for 3 years. We actually even got married, but it was not really like a real thing. That's another story for another day. Um, but I know
it was not really a real thing.
it was so we got married basically for papers.
Oh yeah, I love that.
But
Right.
we were in a relationship.
Mm.
It's just it's yeah, it's not like a the mail order bride thing, but
Yeah,
it was definitely not like like a we
a big
weren't
grand church
inspired to get
wedding.
married. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like we went down to the courthouse and got it done.
Yeah.
So, um but uh he wanted to go open like
Ah,
immediately. Like, huge red flag.
unsurprising.
But I was also like, okay, sure, I'm down. Let's try it. And so in my literal, this was my first relationship, mind you, ever in my life, and I'm 23 years old.
I'm also
Okay.
going to go out on a limb and say he was not a Christian.
No, he was
Yeah,
not. No,
right.
he was not. Actually, not religious in
Mm.
his thinking, but grew up Muslim.
Okay.
So kind of the opposite right there. Like that made my mom really happy. So,
Mm.
so we start going into this open thing, and it's absolute hell. Like, I do not have the mental or emotional capacity to handle an open relationship, but I'm trudging through it because something in me is telling me, like, stick
Mm.
with this.
Mm.
And then shortly after that, like after COVID, like 2020, I was like, I started to have those feelings again
Mm.
crop up. And I was like, I need to experiment with women.
Yeah.
Experiment. I
Mm.
was like, I need to just try it. And it became at this point, mind you, I was totally like unreligious at this point.
Yeah.
So there was no like homophobia in
Mm.
me anymore, but I
Mhm.
was still very it was still suppressed in my body.
Mm.
Crazy. So but anyway, I was like, I need to experiment with women, and it became an obsession.
Mm.
Um, Meanwhile, my that relationship was falling apart in
Mm.
other ways for other reasons, and it all came crashing down after the first time, or was it the second time? I experimented. No, it was really the first time I
Mm.
experimented with a woman. Um, and it was like the scales came down, and I came out and left my husband in the same night.
Oh, wow. Go
And
hard or go home, right?
yes, it was talk about like
Oh,
a whirlwind. Yeah, and that was 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago.
COVID has a lot to be responsible for, hey?
I am I'm not gonna lie, like
Oh,
I'm grateful. I'm very
yeah.
grateful.
Okay, so like my brain is going in like a few different directions. So I'm like, what do
There's
I
a lot there. There's a
Yeah,
lot there.
because like my first instinct is like even using like at the time sort of saying like there was no homophobia, but even at the time still using the word like experiment with women.
Hmm.
Like it sounds like there you might have sort of like deconstructed and cognitively unpacked homophobia, but there was still remnants of it living in your
Oh
system.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, totally. It
Yeah.
was yeah, it was like but it was the whatever was covering it was starting to crack,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Um yeah, and then it all came flooding out.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
particularly if you had deconstructed Christianity at that point, which also like what was that like? That's probably what was covering it up until that point.
Mm,
Like that's the
yeah.
conditioning. So if you're sort of like actively starting to pull that apart and dismantle it, it cracks the foundation, it cracks the
Yep.
surface. Um, Okay, what was it like to deconstruct for you? As someone who was not like personally invested in the faith.
Yeah, it was very fast and very easy.
Yeah.
Um I graduated college and I
Mm,
moved back home to New Jersey, and I was actually alone in my mom's house because she had moved with her new husband somewhere else.
mhm,
And so she was like, "You stay home, take care of the house and the dog." And I was like, "Okay." So I was living by myself in my childhood home,
mm,
um, without the pressure of anyone around me telling me what to do, because all my other siblings were off in different places.
mm,
And I just remember, I actually remember the moment where I was sitting down, I was doing my devotions, as they say,
mm.
um,
Haven't
like a
heard that
good
word
little
for a while.
Christian. Yeah, but at this point, I was very like, I was I was on my way out, and I don't even remember why I felt compelled to sit down and do that, but I was reading that part in First Timothy, where he talks about like how women should not teach in church,
Hmm.
and how they and that how I think it's like goes like the Christ is the head of the church and the man is the head of the home sort of thing, and the woman
Big
basically can eat
submission
shit and
one.
die. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just was like, but I just like worked my ass off for a degree at a prestigious music school. I'm pretty
Mm,
awesome in a way.
hmm.
And like men are kind of shit. So
Hmm.
like this doesn't really make sense. And I just remember feeling like, okay, so basically to be a Christian means that I have to hate women and including myself, and suppress not only like my gayness, but also now I need to suppress my intelligence and
Yes.
my leadership abilities. And I just was like, also, and in college had kind of made me like a feminist. And so
Mm,
I was just like, if I gotta pick between the two, I'm not picking the Bible.
yeah.
And so that was kind of the moment where it like the bottom fell out a little bit.
Mm,
And after that, I just started kind of scrutinizing other doctrines.
mm.
And then it was just kind of like, yeah, none of this really makes sense. I'm over it.
Yeah.
That was just kind of it. And
Mm,
I threw it away and I never looked back.
yeah.
Ever looked back.
I mean, like, I often will talk about deconstruction and religious trauma as separate things because obviously they are. And
Yeah.
deconstruction is it's often such a cognitive process in that you are pulling it apart and dismantling it and I mean, deconstruction for me was like around critical thinking. Like I was
Hmm.
using my brain finally.
Yeah.
And and actually looking at things objectively and differently. And but were there lingering parts of that conditioning that you experienced growing up that you still took with you in your body? Because like that's the religious trauma part, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. The hardest part for me was um not knowing what my identity would be
Yeah.
if I stopped saying that I was a Christian.
Mm,
Because since that moment that my mom came home,
yeah.
my identity became Christian,
Mm,
right? And so, and of course, that's the time of your life when you're supposed to develop your real identity. So I
mm,
never got that opportunity to develop my real identity. So my identity was Christian. And so
mm,
for me, that was the scariest part was, all right, shit. Cognitively, like you're saying, I know none of this makes sense, but now who am I?
yeah.
And it was a matter of, I think, being brave enough to just say, I'll figure it out. And I did.
Yeah. Twofold question, which is what was it like to tell your mum you weren't a Christian, and what was it like to tell your mum you were gay? Like the double whammy, right?
I actually don't know if I ever told my mom directly that I wasn't a Christian.
Oh,
I,
right.
I'm sure there must have been a moment when we were fighting and I was probably like, I'm not even a Christian anymore. I don't believe this shit, that sort of thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
But unfortunately, my mom really struggles to hold meaningful relationships with the people in her life. She's very, very closed off and uses religion very much as both a weapon and as also a shield.
Mm,
And so she was not really involved in my life to the point where it would ever come up
Yeah.
naturally, you know? So, although I'm sure there's still a part there, I'm sure there's a part of her that still believes that I'm just, you know, lost temporarily and will find my
Mm,
way back. I believe that because she mentions that a lot.
mm,
Um, and so, or hints at it, I should say. And then to tell my mom I was gay was really hard because I
yeah.
knew that she wouldn't accept it. And I knew that it meant potentially losing that relationship. And I was right because she still doesn't accept who I am. She
Yeah.
still believes that, you know, it's a choice and that it's a sinful lifestyle that I'm living and she has made the choice to not be around me and my partner at the same time.
Mm,
Um, in her words, because that means she's condoning my sinful behavior.
mm,
So, yeah, so obviously that makes it hard to have any sort of a relationship with her, which is
mm.
really, really heartbreaking and
Yeah.
something that I think about almost every day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is it a relationship that you've tried? And I sort of ask this based on like the experiences that I've heard so many times, which is that like, are you finding that you are trying so hard to maintain that relationship and there's no reaping of any reward or any like tiny little glimmer and it's just fucking exhausting?
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at now. I'm
Yeah.
exhausted and I've done what I feel like I can do as a human being to hold space for her and her trauma and all that, but it's not reciprocated. And so at some point, it's like yelling at a brick wall, expecting it to fall. So you
Yeah.
just have to move on and appreciate what you have and try to
Yeah.
make the best.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. I I imagine hard is actually probably a giant ass understatement, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah.
And what is it? I mean, I like we're recording this at the beginning of December. So what are holidays like for you?
Yeah. Hard. I mean, hard.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it's interesting because thankfully the rest of my family saw the light, the real light, I should say.
I was
And they've
like,
all
oh no.
saw the real light. And they've all deconstructed in their own ways.
Love that.
Um, yeah, and they're all totally supportive of who I am, and it's
Mm,
not even a thing. So very grateful for that because I know that a lot of people don't even have that. But it's still just my mom being the way she is and choosing the things she's choosing. It just complicates everything because it's hard enough for me to
mm,
get down there because I'm 6 hours by car away, and
mm,
so to get down there and then have to sort of like have two Christmases or two Thanksgivings just to accommodate her.
mm,
I I don't want to do it anymore, and and my siblings are all they all have their own feelings about it because, everybody wants the nostalgia of
mm.
family being together and understandably so. So
Yeah.
it's just it throws a wrench in everything and it's just really a huge disappointing pain in the ass.
Yeah. And I mean, it almost forces you to slip back into masking. Like back when
Mhm.
like you would have masked your queerness and your gayness because of Christianity, it's sort of like even though you're out now, it forces you to slip back into that because like you're around somebody who doesn't affirm you. And so it's
Yep.
like, oh, let's not be like, how can, like, is this outfit super gay? Like,
Right.
and it's
Right.
all of those things that you shouldn't have to think about that someone who is supposed to love you is forcing you to think about, essentially.
Right.
Yeah,
Totally.
that's
Yeah,
exhausting.
it is exhausting, but I, thankfully I have space,
Mm,
physical space,
yeah.
so that I can choose number one when to be in that
Mm,
situation if I'm going to be in it at all, and
mm,
then I have time to mentally prepare so that I don't do that because I did do that for the first couple of years
Mm.
and hated it. So, and I'm at a point now where it's not worth it for me anymore to do that to myself.
Mm.
So, which makes it even harder. So,
Yeah. So you came out about 4 years ago. What has it
yeah.
been like for you exploring your sexuality without the shackles and entering into a whole different form of community?
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
I've loved every minute. I won't say every minute, but
Mm.
I have loved the experience of being myself and um, meeting people with similar experiences or at least similar uh, you know, ways of thinking.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting. I'm curious if you can relate, but I still feel like there's this crust, this I'll call it a crust, this heteronormative crust
Mm.
inside of me
Mm.
that is still kind of lingering that comes off with time. But
Mm.
I'll find myself like every once in a while being like, "Oh shit, I'm gay. That's
Mm.
awesome." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'll just like remember that I'm gay and all that I had to get through, I think, to get here.
Mm.
And I'm just overwhelmed with like relief and
Mm.
joy and gratitude. And so that's fun. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be like if I was just raised in a
Mm.
healthy environment where that's just who I was and it wasn't a thing, but
Yeah.
because it was a thing my whole life, now it's a thing in my brain and my body, even though I'm, living truthfully. I'm sure that like it's a different experience than other people who, didn't have to go through that. But
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that's just, I think people think that unlearning everything that you were taught as a child or, deconditioning from faith communities or cult communities, like happens and then it's done.
mhm.
Like it doesn't work like that
Yeah,
because like, we will have things happen that we don't expect and, that causes us to either have another realization or find something new that we need to unlearn or suddenly be surprised that like, oh my gosh, like I obviously have a wife and so like, yeah, there are days where I'm like, man, I'm really surprised that I'm married to a woman. Like I just like I'm genuinely surprised. Like,
yeah,
Sam from like 10 years ago would not be cool with this.
right?
It just, yeah. So there are, of course, moments where that happens. And like there's always like lingering things when you are conditioned one way, that deconditioning process and that unlearning everything that you were taught. Um, I mean, is equally not supposed to happen overnight and in a short period of time, but I think is just going to continually happen. Uh,
Yeah.
was there a part of you that found the transition from faith community to secular communities to queer communities difficult, or was that a pretty smooth transition?
I think it was I think it was smooth because it was always who I was. And it was
Mm.
kind of like it was like, I don't know, like I found people who finally spoke the same language as me in a way. And it was like as if I had been speaking a third language all my life.
Mm.
So for me, I found it really seamless.
Mm.
Um, so yeah.
Mm. And so I'm curious because obviously, going from a hetero relationship to a homosexual relationship, where they're like, which is like I say that and I don't remember the last time I said homosexual. I usually just use the word queer, but I was
Because we're
like,
talking
let's make
about
it really
religion.
distinguishing right now.
Yeah.
Like, um, anyway, to go from like a male female to a female female relationship.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to unlearn, I guess, the traditional roles that people were supposed to play in a relationship in the early stages of that?
Yeah, do you know, so what's interesting is as difficult as my hetero relationship was, my ex-husband was actually super open-minded
Love that.
and and did not conform to those traditional
Mm.
um, sort of norms like you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, he had his flaws and I had mine, but it was really refreshing in that way and opened my mind up to approaching relationships based on, you know, critical thinking and what makes sense as
Mm.
opposed to, gender norms. So, luckily I didn't have that baggage. It
Great.
was I had a lot more baggage, don't you worry. I had like seven suitcases full, but
Yeah.
that one I left on the plane. So, but yeah, but that's interesting that you bring that up because my partner and I talk about that all the time because she came from
Mm.
that dynamic where her husband was super like, I want you to raise my kids and I want to come home and play with them and then, I'll occasionally cook dinner and get kudos for it.
Mhm.
Um and so for her, I think that's been a much more significant
Mm.
uh unlearning process.
Mm.
And it shows up in interesting ways in our current relationship. So, yeah, the patriarchy just gets its claws into everybody. So,
Yeah, it just fucking sucks, to be fair.
yeah.
Um, what has been the most helpful or the most impactful or just like the most memorable part of deconstruction or healing or coming out or just like that whole process?
Oh man, that's hard. That's a hard question. Um, I don't know. I would say the most memorable. So, okay, let me frame it this way.
Mm.
To me, it was like once I did it, it was so obvious what was going on.
Mm.
And so I've arrived at this place where I'm like, how can I, like, if I can just get people to be willing to go through that temporary discomfort,
Yeah.
they can literally have a whole new life.
Mm.
And so I think what I've taken out of it is that who we're around really matters,
Mm.
as in the people we have in our lives, and more importantly, the messages they're giving to us.
Mm.
It impacts us a lot. I think that's evolutionary
Mm.
and human, and we're pack animals, etc. So I think what I try to do is if I can be that influence, that positive message
Mm.
in a person's life, I feel like I want to do that
Mm.
because I know how impactful it can be. Because when I was going through my deconstruction,
Mm.
I had my oldest sister who was living just a few blocks down from me, and she was not Christian at all. And she held that space for me to figure it out and didn't interfere with that process. And I think it made a huge difference whether or not I knew it because it was safe
Mm.
for me to explore that world. And I think if you don't have that, it can be the difference between staying trapped and getting out.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of like, I
Mm.
think that's been my biggest takeaway from all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I mean, to like echo what you're saying, you like everything that we know about like our nervous system and trauma, and is that we are not supposed to heal in isolation. Like as humans, we are hardwired for connection, and in particular, obviously, safe connections. And so
Yeah.
we are not supposed to do it alone, and doing it alone is going to be exponentially harder than if
Yeah.
we could do it with safe, nourishing connections. So, yeah, it's finding your people and finding safe people is
Yeah.
always such a crucial part of this process. And also, it's such a like, it's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, which was that I wanted people to feel less alone. Like, you're not the only
Yeah.
person who is like, feeling panicked about, not going to church, or like
Right.
not opening your Bible that day, or, you know, uh, these things that other people might not be able to understand. There are people who do.
Yeah.
And so,
Yep.
which is like a lovely, like, little transition to what I finish all of these episodes with, which is, what would you say to the person who was at the beginning of their journey of like deconstructing or processing trauma, or like the wheels are just fallen off?
hmm
What would you say to them?
I believe this to my very core
Mm,
that you listening can always trust yourself.
mm,
I believe that our bodies and our minds always are wise
mm,
and know what the next step is for us.
mm.
Even if it seems weird or hard or scary or counterproductive,
Yeah,
I just always believe that our bodies and our minds are guiding us back to ourselves.
yeah.
And so trust yourself and take your time. There's
Mm,
no rush. Take your time.
mhm.
Trust yourself. You will get there. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's it.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This was such a great conversation.
It's been a pleasure. I love chatting to like other late blooming queer people. It's just fun.
Yes, and I would love to hear your story sometime.
Well, I mean, there is an episode. I've done a few with other people as well, but yeah, it's a fun time, hey, doing this.
It is. It's therapeutic
Um,
though.
yeah.
You should be charging for these.
But yes, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure chatting.
Yeah, back at you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Beyond the Surface. I hope you found today's conversation as insightful and inspiring as I did. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who might benefit from these stories. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and more content. I love connecting with all of you. Remember, no matter where you are in your journey, you're not alone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep moving forward. Take care.